The Bradley Marquez fight is a fight that is viewed as, to an extent, a fight between two guys who beat Manny Pacquiao. Bradley fought Pacquiao last year and was awarded a decision in a fight where almost everyone watching felt that Pacquiao deserved a 9-3 type of decision. Marquez went on to knock Pacquiao out. So even though this is viewed as two Pacquiao conquerors, the boxing public, for the most part, recognizes Marquez as the guy who is the true victor in the Pacquiao fights, even though Timothy Bradley is still viewed as a legitimate top guy in the sport. His legacy, everything that he's accomplished up till now, took place at junior welterweight. He won his first world title there. He beat guys like Junior Witter, Kendall Holt, Devin Alexander. He established himself as a very good fighter and was on the verge of greatness. And instead of cleaning out junior welterweight, he stepped up to welterweight where the money is, and he took on Manny Pacquiao. And as we already covered, even though he was awarded a decision, it was still kind of a blow to his career and his legacy. Years from now, everyone is going to talk about that fight and look on at Pacquiao as the winner. But because he was awarded the decision, he is moving forward with his career and facing the top welterweight in the world, and that's Juan Manuel Marquez. Marquez has been around since the early 2000s and has established himself as a great fighter, and he is most widely recognized as the guy who many feel has Manny Pacquiao's number. They fought 4 times. The first 3 fights went the distance. The first was a draw. The other 2, Pacquiao won in a split decision, majority decision, close fights where Pacquiao was given the edge. And then, of course, Marquez went on and knocked him out. But a lot of people feel that Marquez deserved the decision in those 3 fights. And because he has looked so much better than other Pacquiao opponents, they feel that he's the guy, like a Ken Norton type of guy, who has Pacquiao's number. I don't think that that's particularly accurate. I think they were fights that could have gone either way, and just because he fights Pacquiao much better than other Pacquiao opponents, that doesn't necessarily mean that he has his number. But he kind of put a rest to that debate to an extent by knocking Pacquiao out. For Timothy Bradley to win this fight, he is going to need a solid game plan. He goes into a lot of his fights wanting to prove himself to his opponent, to the crowd, to himself. He's kind of a guy who is almost, one of his great assets is his bravery. And that can be in his favor, and it can also be to his detriment. He always has this attitude that he wants to prove that he is a certain type of guy. It was revealed in the Pacquiao buildup that he ran a marathon or a half marathon before one of his fights as he's coming up, the week of the fight, just to prove to himself that he can do it. And I suppose it worked out just fine in that particular fight because he went on to win. But that sort of attitude can also get him in trouble, as it did in his last fight against Provodnikov. He was the subject of a lot of criticism because of the Pacquiao fight, and he went out there trying to prove himself, and he almost got knocked out as a result. So when he fights Marquez, he's going to have to use his intelligence and not just his brawn and his bravery. I think the way for Timothy Bradley to win this fight is an in-and-out, side-to-side type of fight. Use a little bit of movement and keep Marquez off balance, go in and score, and then get out of the way. He cannot stand in front of Marquez and prove himself and try to man up on him because Marquez is a much sharp puncher. I think that his activity level and his quick combinations is the key to victory, and then getting out of the way, showing a lot of intelligence. For Marquez, he's a fighter who has more options than Timothy Bradley because he's more technically correct and has a little more versatility to his game. He's going to have to establish his jab and keep this fight on the outside. Timothy Bradley is a rough inside fighter, which is why a lot of his opponents suffer headbutts. I don't think that he's a dirty fighter in the traditional sense, but he's very rough on the inside. Marquez needs on the inside, and Marquez needs to be aware of that. He needs to establish his jab, and I also think that he should use his jab and kind of parry Timothy Bradley's head. That's not entirely legal, but he needs to see Timothy Bradley's head as almost a third glove that's going to be coming at him, and he needs to create his distance any way that he can. But once he establishes his jab, the right hand and the left hook are going to come behind it. And if you're in Marquez's corner, you trust his ability to use judgment, whether he is the guy who's sitting back and counterpunching or pressing the issue. You just need to put him at the right range, and his boxing ability, his judgment, his sharp punching, and all of his experience are going to speak for itself. And I think that these attributes of Marquez's are what's going to pull out a unanimous decision victory. I think he's more talented. I think he's a sharper puncher and the better boxer. And I actually think that he could possibly knock Timothy Bradley out. But because Timothy Bradley had a wake-up call in his last fight, I think he's going to be a little more mindful of his opponent's power and his own mortality, as he was in Pacquiao. Going into the Pacquiao fight, he was talking it up as if it was the type of fight where he was ready to die. And he didn't fight that way. He actually fought as if he had respect for his opponent. And I think we're going to see some of that healthy respect against Juan Manuel Marquez. And Bradley in this fight is kind of in a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation, because if he lays back too much, it risks giving the fight away on points because he's not the more talented boxer. But if he overcommits himself, as he did in his previous fight, he stands a good chance of getting knocked out. And I think that Timothy Bradley has proven that he is aware of the risks he faces against dangerous punchers. And Marquez is now viewed as a dangerous puncher because of what he did to Pacquiao. And for that reason, I think he's going to fight a more conservative fight, a spirited effort, but a conservative fight. And because Juan Manuel Marquez is the better boxer, I think he's going to pull out a unanimous decision victory.